Welcome to Conversations on the Coop. I'm your host, Trinity Director of Athletics, Drew Galbraith. It's my pleasure to be joined today by a member of Trinity's women's lacrosse team, Caroline Lally. Caroline, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So we'll talk a little bit about your story of getting into lacrosse and kind of all your family history there. We'll talk about some of your academic interests here at Trinity. But your team just recently went through something that not many teams go through in season, which is head coach has to leave the team with a few games left in the season after having a child. Like, how did the team kind of come together in those couple of days after Coach Szymanski had to go out on maternity leave?
Yeah, I think this team this year is very special, especially our senior class. And throughout the entire season, we've done a great job at maintaining a very strong relationship within the team. And obviously, it was very sad to see Coach Dis leave kind of earlier than expected. But we kind of came together as a group with Meg and Avery as well as the captains, and we kind of said we still have work that needs to be done, and we owe it to Dis to kind of get it all together and straightened out and come back with a win for Middlebury. It didn't work out as well as we hoped, but we played one of our best games this season, and we're just so excited to meet Bruce and see Dis again back on the field hopefully soon.
So let's kind of go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
You grew up in a lacrosse household, so your dad played college lacrosse. It's kind of in your family's DNA. So what's your earliest memory with a stick in your hand?
I would say, going back to when I was even like 4 or 5 years old, my dad had this like little camcorder that he would always like bring around like on the weekends, and we were just like doing random stuff in the backyard. And there's like clips of me and my younger brothers with these like tiny little plastic sticks, just like trying to learn how to even like hold the ball and cradle it, and just like running around like chickens with our heads cut off in the backyard, just like running around and having fun. And I'd say that's when I first started to remember lacrosse as just being something as like a fun thing to do with my brothers. Almost any chance that we could, and my dad would just try and like teach us and show us what to do, but we were just so young at the time that it was just something that was so new to us and was just something fun that we could do in our free time. So
3 younger brothers, so you've got a little bit of an age gap to kind of stay ahead of them athletically, but how was that growing up, playing sports, kind of anything physical, I'd imagine?
It was so fun. I wouldn't change it for the world. They definitely kept me on my toes at times. There are also moments where there was nothing more that I wanted than a sister, but looking back now, they truly have made me the person and the athlete that I am today, and I don't think that I would be as physically or mentally tough without them. There would definitely be tears shed multiple days of the week just because both of us, just because we would get so competitive with one another, and what would start out as like a small game of knee hockey or pickup basketball in the yard or driveway turned into like a bloodbath.
Did one of your parents end up having to be like the judge and jury?
Oh, my mom would want to kill my dad because he would totally egg it on, and like being an athlete himself in college, I think he loved to see his kids coming together over sports and just like competing with one another. And I remember it'd always be something, and my mom would say, just wait till someone gets hurt, like don't come crying to me. And sure enough, like 5 minutes later, someone would be coming in with a cut knee or a split forehead, and she'd be like, I told you so. And it was worth it.
And it was growing up.
Yeah, yeah.
So fast forward a little bit. So you were in high school before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So your freshman year or first year at Thayer, you make the varsity. Is that when the light bulb kind of went on and you said, like, I might be able to do something special with lacrosse?
So it's funny because my freshman year we went to Clearwater, Florida for the lacrosse spring break trip, and that was kind of like our tryout. And I went into it, I was so undergrown. I think I was like 4'10". I had braces. I looked like I was 12 years old as a freshman in high school. Like, people would say to me, like, oh, are you lost? Like, middle school was across the street, because I literally looked like a child. And I didn't know what to expect going on that trip. I mean, I was just so much smaller than everyone else and very underdeveloped, so I definitely wasn't the strongest player out on the field. And I had no idea what the cards were going to play for me. And I ended up making varsity, and it was so exciting. And I think being on a team with, at the time, like such incredible seniors in leadership, I was rarely ever on the field, but I think that was when I first established a sense of what a team really should look like and how to form those relationships with your teammates and how it's more than just a team and it's like a family. But yeah, freshman year I was a peanut and I was more of just like the support girl from the sidelines, but it was definitely like one of the highlights of my career at Thayer because I think it set the foundation for the athlete that I would become in the years after.
And what sort of development took place your sophomore year? You kind of lose the season like everybody did in the Northeast because of the pandemic. So what sort of kind of lacrosse development took place for you?
Yeah, so I think when COVID hit my sophomore year in March, I remember it was right before the spring break trip and we were supposed to go, and then my coach had a meeting and said, like, listen, like, we don't really know what's going on, but school is going to shut down for 2 weeks. And I have videos on my phone from that meeting before my coach came in, and we were all like, no school for 2 weeks, like, we don't know what's going to happen. And then 2 weeks, turned into a couple months and honestly a year. And for me, my whole life had been doing sports and constantly moving and doing something. So when the CDC was like, okay, you have to stay home and you can't leave, like, and you're just restricted to doing nothing. I mean, it was impossible for me and my brothers not get to work, but just, like, have fun and make use of our time.
Right.
So, like, every day we were trying to do anything to ease our minds. So we would make up, like, dumb, like, lacrosse practices for ourselves, and not even just lacrosse, like, street hockey games, like I was saying, like, pick up basketball. We'd go on, like, race each other around the neighborhood because we wanted to see who was the fastest, and we'd be coming up our driveway, like, gasping for air. And that was when I mainly started to focus on lacrosse because it was something that I had always loved, but I feel like during that time I really found my love for the sport with the help of my family. And then also down the street live my cousins, the Kents, and they have 6 kids. 5 out of the 6 play college lacrosse at Division I level. And a lot of them had already graduated or were losing their senior year. And then my one cousin lost her senior year of high school. And for them, they also, like myself and like my dad and my siblings, we just wanted to get moving. So they would come over and we'd play pickup lacrosse games, and we would just play from day till night until we couldn't see anymore. And I think that's when my skills developed because it was when I was just practicing constantly. And it wasn't like I was forcing myself. It was more of like I genuinely wanted to be out there working and just having fun with my family.
So then in your junior year, things, travel starts to pick back up again. Obviously school lacrosse picks back up again. And very quickly you're into the recruiting cycle. And so talk about kind of how fast all of that materialized, and then where did Trinity come into the mix?
Yeah, so like for me, over quarantine, I was having meetings with my coach of high school, my club lacrosse coach, and I was telling Brenda this, but I am like the most indecisive person you could ever meet. Like, I am always just all over the place with that kind of stuff. And I came back to Thayer and we had tryouts for lacrosse, and I remember we were having a practice and I kind of walked off the field like feeling really good about myself, and I had never really had that feeling before. I had felt in the previous years, like my freshman year, and then obviously we lost sophomore year to COVID, but I kind of felt like I was behind the wheel and that I wasn't really confident in my abilities. And then coming back and having like that sense of like, oh, I think I can do this for myself, and I have this like new like fire under me where like I felt like I belonged there and I could contribute to the team. And I think that's when I kind of realized like, oh, I want to take this college process more seriously. But then again with COVID, it was still really hard because schools weren't having students to campus, and you couldn't go for an overnight and meet the students and whatnot. So it was so hard for me to know what was right and what I wanted I didn't know if I wanted a big school. I didn't know if I wanted a small school. I didn't know if, at the time, like if I wanted to try and pursue Division I, which would have been a challenge for me, but it was something that my coaches had offered and was something that I was considering at one point in time. But it wasn't until the beginning of June, after my season, I was kind of still like up in the air of what I wanted, and we were having practices for the national tournament, which was going to be held in Farmington actually, and Trinity alum Anna Costello, who graduated in 2021, she was looking to play her 5th year somewhere, which now she's at Babson, which is awesome. But she was coming to our high school practices because she just wanted to get her stick in her hand and wanted to just like get back into the swing of things. And it was then when I started playing with her, and she would kind of talk to me about Trinity, and I had never really thought of Trinity before. But we would just have like these small side conversations in line or like in between drills, and I was like, oh, like this girl's awesome, first of all, like she's so cool, and I can see like similarities between ourselves. And I was like, why not Trinity? And she said to me, she was like, have you ever considered Trinity? One of my assistant coaches, Liz Bruno, who was just inducted into the Hall of Fame this fall, also went to Trinity. And they were kind of like, why not? Like, why not give it a shot? And I was like, yeah, like, why not? And I had never spoken to Coach Dis before. I hadn't really had any communication with the school. So I reached out, and I know that Anna and Liz, I think, also reached out on my behalf. And I had a call with Dis, and I remember so vividly when I got on the phone with her that with all the other coaches that I had talked to prior to speaking with her, it felt like I was so nervous, and felt like a business call, and that everything I was saying was just focused on lacrosse. I was just, like, they wanted to know everything about where I was looking, where I was in the process. And with this, I don't even think we got to talking to lacrosse until like halfway, 3/4 to the end of the call. We were just like talking about life and our connections, and just like about our families and whatnot. And it was so comforting being on the phone with her and knowing that she actually cared about me as a person and kind of wanted to just get to know me and not just me as a lacrosse player. And that was very comforting to know, and I walked away from that call feeling very good. And then I kind of felt this pressure where I was like, okay, like I really want to perform well in front of her. And she said that she was going to come to the national tournament at the end of June. So I think it was like the week of like June 20th. And she came to 2 of our games. It was so hot out. I remember I was like dying of heat, but it was really fun. And you know, I played my best and I played my heart out. And after I played, she invited me to come to Trinity campus and kind of tour around. I had never been to campus before. And I had first got there, and I kind of was just like, oh, like, wow. And I remember walking around with my parents before we had met up with her. And like I said, I had been like the most indecisive person my whole life, but it finally felt like I was at a point where I was comfortable and at ease with where I was. And there were schools that I would tour and I would say like, oh, this is like the most beautiful campus. This is like the great location, like everything is great, but was just still something missing. And then I think when I came to Trinity, it all kind of came together at once for me. And it was just so comforting and so exciting and such an exhilarating feeling to feel like I found a place that could be my home for the next 4 years. And knowing that, being the person I am, was super important to me because, you know, like I said, family is also very important, and leaving home was something that was very hard for me, and I wanted to make sure that I was at a place that I would feel comfortable and I would feel okay with where I was. And that was Trinity for me. And then shortly afterwards, Dis called me like the first week in July after, like Division III could contact people. And she called me, you know, we had a conversation and she offered me a spot on the team. And I had like clinics that I was still supposed, like I remember I had a clinic, I was supposed to go to Colgate, and then I had like a trip to Villanova planned. And I like got off the phone and went down to my parents, and I was like, I don't even want to see these other options. Like, I don't even have an interest in going to these other schools because it feels so right. And they were kind of like, we support you, whatever you want to do, and we love Trinity, we love this, and we think that the Trinity community is a place that you'd be very well a part of. And yeah, that was kind of that. I took her offer, and here I am.
And here you go.
Yeah.
So a lot of students take some time once they get to Trinity, or really any college, to figure out what they want to do next and kind of figure out their academic interests. And you're a little bit different in that in your second year you've really kind of zeroed in on education and educational support. So talk a little bit about how a student who's only in your second year is already so engaged in our School of Education here, Department of Education here, but also some of the off-campus opportunities you've developed at the modeling school.
Yeah, so my whole life I had always wanted to be a teacher. I think being the oldest sister of 3 younger brothers definitely played a part in that. I remember, like, for my birthday one year, my parents got me this like collapsible school set that had like a finger pointer and stickers and a built-in whiteboard, and the alphabet was on it across the top, and it was like my pride and joy, and I would not go anywhere without it. And I would make my brothers like do these ridiculous like spelling tests and like math equations, and I would make them all like sit down in front of me and do the quizzes and the tests, and I would give them all a sticker and I would correct them. And it was
they thank you now?
Yeah, I mean,
they should, right?
They should, exactly. But I think it was almost like therapeutic for me, and I found a lot of joy in teaching and helping others at such a young age that it was kind of hard to look past as I got older, and my love for sharing that with others and being able to teach others, but also learning through the process myself, was something that I couldn't really look past, and something that I knew that I always wanted to continue. And then at Thayer, I was a part of a couple of like organizations and like after school activities that made me realize that even more like that I wanted to continue this act of, you know, like being able to help others and contribute to the people around me. And then when I came to Trinity, I heard that obviously the educational studies program here was awesome, and students had really enjoyed being a part of it. And when I first came, I took the Analyzing Schools course the spring of my freshman year, which was a little rare just because I was taking it during season. And, you know, like with that class, it requires a 3-hour observation at one of the local Hartford public schools around campus. But I talked to Dis, and I kind of told her how important this was to me and how I've always kind of been good at managing my time. And she said, like, hey, like, if you're willing to do this and you think that it won't be too much on your plate, then I support you. So I kind of took that as the green light, and I enrolled in the class. And I remember the class that we went to where we had to fill out a survey of what we were kind of looking for. I didn't really have a super big preference. I just kind of said, like, anywhere between, like, 3rd and 5th grade range, because I had worked with younger students before, like in kindergarten and 1st grade. And as awesome as that was, I kind of wanted a new experience of kids who are a little bit older and a little bit more matured and weren't, like, considered not like babies, but like young children at the time. And we got our assignments that day, and I remember my professor pulled me aside at the end of class and was like, hey, like, I just want to let you know, like, you got really lucky with your placement teacher, Miss Sartori, at the Expediatory Learning Academy at Moreland Schools right down the street on Catherine Street. And he was like, I just wanted to let you know, like, you're really lucky, and I hope you have a lot of fun with it. Tell her I say hi. And I didn't really know what to expect from that. I was kind of like, okay, like, that's awesome. I got lucky. And then I had my first placement day the following Monday. And I was so nervous because I don't know why, like, a big classroom of 4th graders intimidated me, but I just wanted them to obviously like me, but I also didn't want them to see me as, like, an outsider or, like, not as, like, a teacher. I wanted them to see me as kind of like that in-between, like a friend, but also, like, that teacher's assistant, where they could come to me for stuff if they needed it. So fast forward, I come into class that day, and I remember like my teacher telling me like you don't want to just be like a fly on the wall, like you want to immerse yourself into the classroom. So I immediately walked in, and like 20 like tiny little heads like turned their way, and Miss Sartori introduced me, and it was like a quick like 30-second introduction, and then I kind of just like pulled up a chair to one of the desk groups, and I just hopped right in, and just I asked a lot of questions. I remember, and like definitely like careful how I was phrasing them, just because like I knew that I was a foreign person to these students, but I just remember sitting there in the first class watching Miss Sartori handle the situations that unfolded in just one class the way she did was incredibly eye-opening, and I can see why my professor had kind of set me up for believing why she was such an amazing teacher. And it's hard because a lot of these students, they come from troubled home situations, and coming to school is the highlight of their day and the highlight of their weeks, and having an important support system at school is so incredibly important, and Ms. Sartori was undoubtedly that person for these students. And while at times there was points where she had to crack down because the behavior was out of control, she just handled the situations with such grace and just in all of the right ways, and it was truly so inspiring and grew my love for education even more because I just admired how much she loved these children and like put in the time for them. And there's a lot of teachers at the school who wouldn't do the same, and a lot of teachers don't last long at these Hartford public institutions, especially ELAMs, because it's really hard managing these kids with all that they've been through. And I just admired her so much for how long she's been at the school and how well she treats each of her students individually.
So that experience did nothing but further your love and interest and
yeah.
for education. So what's next on the docket? So junior year, a lot of students go abroad. You can take advantage of that opportunity?
Yes, I'm going to Greece in the fall, which will be very exciting. I'm going all alone, which is a little scary, but I decided that I've never really done anything on my own before, and there isn't really a lot of experiences that I will know in the future that I'll have to be fully on my own and learn how to, navigate my life in the world without the help of others. And I think that'll be really good for me. It's definitely a little scary, but I'm more excited.
And will you have any kind of opportunities in education over there too?
Yeah, so I am taking an education course over there, and then I think I'm also looking for the opportunity to possibly immerse myself into one of the Greek elementary schools over there in Athens, which is where I'll be staying. Still TBD at the moment, but that's something that I've been looking into, and I really want to continue while I'm over there.
And then, have you thought about how do you kind of come back ready to go next spring? I'm sure you've talked to older teammates who've done that experience, going abroad and then coming back. Have you thought about that already?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely scary, going across the country, living in a completely different cultural environment, and then coming back to Trinity, where it's a completely different circle of people and a completely different location. You look at Greece and then Hartford, two beautiful places, but very different from one another. But I think I'm not as much worried. I think I'm more excited to take what I learn abroad and those new experiences and be able to carry it over what I learn and kind of the new experiences that I have over there back to Trinity. And I'm also looking forward to, meeting all of the incoming freshmen that I will be with next fall. I've met most of them through the clinics and whatnot, and they stay with us at some points over the fall, but I'm really excited.
So what's one thing that you, whether from Hartford or kind of back home in Massachusetts, what's one thing that you know you're going to miss being out of the country next fall?
My family, for sure. I know. I'm that's the one thing. I mean, it was really hard for me to make the decision to go abroad because of that factor. Just because they're my rock, they're my people. So that'll definitely be tough, but there's FaceTime and there's phones, and I think that they are gonna try to make it an effort to hopefully come over and visit at some point. But with all of their sports going on, it'll be tough. But no, hopefully I'll be able to see them at some point while I'm over there.
Outstanding. Caroline, I wish you and your teammates best of luck the rest of the
Thank
season.
you.
That'll do it for this conversation on the Coop. For all the latest news, scores, and schedules, go to bantamsports.com. Follow us on social at Bantam Sports. Until next time.